Not exactly what we had in mind for Sunday night, Dolphins fans. The day actually got out to a fairly good start, kind of unexpectedly. The New England Patriots knock off the Buffalo Bills. They take care of business. However, we fail to take advantage of the opportunity, as you know, losing to the Eagles 31-17 Sunday night football. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to be talking top takeaways, reactions to everything that we saw on Sunday night against the Eagles. But before I jump into anything I've got, let's hear from you. Your top takeaways, thoughts on the games, go ahead, drop them in the comments. If you haven't gotten subscribed yet, make sure you are doing so. But in what I think is kind of the tail of the game, where we ended up just failing too much, too often, too consistently, offensive line issues, offensive line injuries. We're already down Connor Williams. He was inactive for the game. We already are obviously down Teron Armstead. We lose Isaiah Wynn relatively early in the game as well. At that point, against that defensive line, it's too much to overcome. The fact that we were in the game as long as we were is almost a little bit of a surprise, all things considered. We'll talk more about that as well. But with those offensive line issues against that defensive line, we saw the run game suffer. And in the first half, we set the damn near the record fewest rushing yards ever in a first half since like 2009 or whatever the stat was. We had -7 yards in the first half. So Mike McDaniel does a couple of things nice at halftime with the adjustments. We start doing a little bit more outside running plays, getting the ball to Mostert where he can get to the corner a little bit quicker, let him go in space. And it's working because there was absolutely no room up the middle. And when the run game suffers, as we know, defensive lines can then take advantage of knowing that we're going to have to pass the ball. Tua was sacked 3 times, mostly at the end when they knew we were going to pass. That's when our offensive line seems to have the issues, when the run game's not a threat, when we can't scheme up protection, knowing that the run game is going to be a threat, when it's just the offensive line versus the defensive line. That's where we see the pressure coming. And the issues that we saw, we dog on Connor Williams for not being able to snap the ball, but I'll tell you what, the guy looks like the best snapper of all time compared to Liam Eichenberg. Liam's snapping it high, he's snapping it low, he's got snaps that flutter, he's missing snap counts, which are leading to false start penalties. We saved Connor Williams probably from further injury tonight by not playing him. You could make the argument, though, that we need him back more than Teron Armstead, which sounds almost crazy to say, but you could make that argument with the way that Kendall Lamb has kind of been able to hold himself at left tackle basically throughout the season. Because if you look at the left side of our line, it's Kendall Lamb, and then it was Lester Cotton, and then it was Liam Eichenberg against that defensive line. And then you get Lester Cotton, who's fresh into the game, hasn't really had any action, a little bit last year, sporadic play here and there. He gets the holding call, which costs us the Tyreek Hill touchdown. Just a lot. It's just a lot to overcome, and it proved to be too much to overcome. I thought that just overall, I think just kind of like the flow of the video I'm going to do here, I thought the offensive line issues kind of told the story of the night. So my next 2 takeaways are mostly going to be the good and the bad. So let's start out with some good. I saw a couple of nice things out on the field tonight. On the Jalen Hurts fumble, we talked about having a controlled rush against these mobile quarterbacks. The edges did that perfectly. I don't remember if it was Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb. Both of them were right there. They both got in for that forced fumble. Christian Wilkins is there to recover. Really gave us some hope, some life early in that game. Later, Jalen Hurts did escape a few times, made some plays outside of the pocket. You're not always going to be able to contain him, but I thought we had a couple of nice examples of at least keeping him contained here and there. Maybe that gives us hope against guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen in the future. Huge response by the offense just before halftime. The beautiful touchdown between Tua and Tyreek. If you watch Tyreek run his route, he basically runs a fly route, but he runs it to the inside. He beats his guy to the inside and then still has enough speed to outrun the safety. And then that Tua ball placement to Tyreek Hill, immaculate. That you couldn't have handed it better. You hear that analogy when quarterbacks are spot on. That ball placement was beautiful. And then earlier in the drive, this play cannot be ignored. The deep out to Cedrick Wilson. I believe it was 3rd and long on that play. Huge play to extend that drive. One of the best throws we saw from either quarterback throughout the night. Jalen Phillips back. I mean, he was on a snap count. He seemed like he played a little bit more than I even anticipated him playing. He got the sack to kill the last seconds of the first half after we had scored, which was huge because it basically allowed Philly no chance. I think they had like 40, 45 seconds left. But with an offense as potent as theirs can be, that's enough to go down and get into field goal range. So he basically killed that. And what it did was it gave us a chance to double dip coming out in the second half since we had just scored. We never do. We didn't. That seems to be a thing that we can't happen. That drive to start the second half was killed by a Julian Hill phantom holding call. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in the comments talking about the officiating in this game. The Kader Kohu slot blitz where he timed that perfectly. He got his hands right into Jalen Hurts' throwing lane. He deflects that ball. The ball goes directly to Jerome Baker, right in the perfect spot. He houses it. We tied the game up at 17. Gave us some more life right there as well. So definitely some good points, not an outright wasted effort. Obviously not enough good stuff because we're going to talk about the bad here as well. Now the bad. Some of this stuff is a little bit concerning. The penalties, yes, I know some of our calls were a bit phantom. I will say that. But 10 penalties we committed compared to 0 by the Eagles. Now, a lot of that is just your standard execution stuff that we're going to get to because it was the nature of the ones that the Dolphins were getting. Christian Wilkins, a veteran defensive lineman, one of the best in the league, guy that wants a new contract, guy that makes impact plays all day, every day, lined up offsides twice. These are things that he can't be doing. These are things that we can't be doing in week 7 of the NFL season when we're one of these contending teams. We cannot be doing that. We started the game. Our first offensive play was a delay of game call. How does that happen? If you know, let me know, because that was mind-boggling to me. And then we also needed to take a timeout on the first play of the drive that ended the third quarter for how confusing that is. But basically, there was no plays before that. We were going onto the field and we couldn't get the ball snapped. We had to call a timeout. Being down in the fourth quarter, that's an important timeout. Realistically, if we were going to be in that game, that would have been a huge timeout to have. So those plays, we struggled with those last year. We had been doing better with those compared to last year, but we definitely took a step back on Sunday night. Another thing that we just continue to struggle with, covering tight ends. Can we do it? Are we ever going to do it? Dallas Goedert seemed to just completely always making plays, and his plays were always moving the chains. 5 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. 5 catches on 5 targets. All of those seem to be impact plays. All of them seem to be going for first downs. And guess what? In 2 weeks, we get the best tight end arguably to ever do it in Travis Kelce. So keep that in mind as well. Tyreek's drop. I know he gets a drop here and there. I know we can't dog on Tyreek Hill. The dude is insane. Had another great night tonight, but dropped that ball when it was 17-10. He likely scores if he brings that up. And then we end up going for it on 4th. Cedrick Wilson gets a little bit of a face mask tug, ends up being no call. We end up getting a turnover on downs. Yeah, I think that was when Kohu saved us, but at the end of the day, we're not always going to be able to bank on a deflected pass getting picked 6th in that situation. So we can't be having that stuff. And then finally, to wrap things up, Tua's interception. Chris Collinsworth actually mentioned it on the broadcast a couple of times. There were multiple times in today's game. Usually our wide receiver spacing is pretty damn good. Like we don't have guys in the same area. We had that happen a couple of times on Sunday night, and this one kind of led to the interception because Tua almost seemed like he really wanted to lob it up to Raheem, and I think it was Waddle had led Slay over into that area. The ball was kind of lazily thrown, just way too much air. Slay had plenty of time to go over there and get that interception. Now, if you watch back on the replay as well, if Tua was able to hold on just a little bit longer, check back to the other side. Durham Smythe was coming open. We can always do the what-if games. I'm not usually a big fan of that. But at the end of the day, if he could have held on just a little bit longer, if we would have recognized that the route was probably ran the wrong way on the right side of the field, we would have had something cooking over on the left side. I talk about game balls in these recaps. And just to be honest with you guys, I'm going to omit the game ball. If you have a Dolphins player, players, whoever you want to nominate for a game ball, go ahead and drop them into the comments. I'm not going to have one tonight. My theory on this one, let's regroup. Let's get healthy. Let's get back to winning next week when we play those Patriots before we got to head overseas and play the Chiefs, who looked like the Chief of old in that first half against the Chargers here this week as well. But that is what I got. Those are my takeaways. I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts, takeaways in the comments section. Let's carry on the conversation there. Let's get back to winning next week, Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.